Hi guys, my name is Hajuddin Ansari and you're watching the 6th tutorial on C programming, and today I will be talking about the if statement. So the if statement is a decision making statement in the C language and it depends on a condition. If the condition is true, the statements inside the body of the if statement will execute, otherwise they won't execute. So let me first define two integer variables, int a is equal to 5 and int b is equal to 2, and I'm going to write my if statement. So this is the structure of the if statement. The condition goes in between this parenthesis right here and the body of the if statement. The statements inside the body of the if statement go in between these curly braces. So I'm going to write my condition if a is greater than b, and the condition can be any relational or logical expression. So if a is greater than b, then simply print a is greater than b. So now what will happen? Now this condition is true. 5 is greater than 2. So since this condition is true, the statements inside the body of the if statement will execute, and I will be getting a is greater than b printed in my output screen. But if I write a false condition, for example, I wrote a is lesser than b. So now since this condition is false, then the statements inside the body of the if statement won't execute, and I will get nothing in my output. So in our previous tutorial, we learned that relational or logical expressions either evaluate to a 1 if they're true or 0 if they're false. So since a is lesser than b, this is a relational expression, and what happens is that it evaluates to the value 0. And when it evaluates to the value 0, so if there's a 0 in between the parentheses, the statements inside the body of the if statement won't execute. But if I had written a is greater than b, so this relational expression, since it is true, it will evaluate to a 1. So when I run the program, the printf statement will execute and I will get a is greater than b in my output screen. So if the condition is false, it evaluates to a 0 and the statement inside the body does not run, and if the condition is true, it evaluates to a 1 and the statements inside the body of the if statement do execute. And one more thing, if there is any integer besides 1 or 0, for example there is minus 95, still this condition will be true and I will get a is greater than b printed in my output screen. Similarly, if I added a very large positive number, for example 99999, for example, and now when I run the program, still the condition of the if statement will be true and printf will print a is greater than b in the output screen. So just keep in mind that if and only if there is a 0 in between the parentheses, then the statements will not execute, and the 0 can only occur in between the parentheses when a condition is false, because when a condition is false, it evaluates to a 0. When a relational or logical expression is false, it evaluates to a 0. So this is the basic idea of the if statement. And now there are different types of if statement. There's the if else statement, the if else if statement, and the nested if statement. So first let me talk about the if else statement. So the if else statement basically gives you two options. If your condition is true, it will execute one block of statements, and if your condition is false, it will execute another block of statements. So let me write, for example, my condition a is greater than b. So inside the body of my if statement, I will write printf. I'm simply going to print capital A. And then I'm going to write else, and inside the body of the else statement, I'm going to print, for example, capital B. So now what's happening here? Since this condition is true, then the statements inside the if statement will execute. That means A will be printed in the output screen and the else statement will be ignored. So when I run the program, I'm going to get capital A printed in the output screen. But if my condition is false, for example, A is lesser than B, this is false, That means the statements inside the body of the else statement will execute and the statements inside the if statement will be ignored. So I will get a capital B printed in the output screen. So this is the if else statement, and now there is the if else if statement, and the if else if statement is used to test multiple conditions. So let me write my if else if statement. First I'm going to write my if statement. If a is, and my condition will be if a is equal to 1, then simply print f. I'm going to print a is equal to 1, and then since I'm writing the else if statement, I'll write else if right here, and then I'm going to write my second condition. If a is equal to 2, then print f. A is equal to 2, and I'm going to write else if again. Else if a is equal to 3, then print a is equal to 3, and finally if all three conditions are false, then I'm going to write my final else statement, and I'm going to inside my the body of my else statement, I'm going to write print f. A is not equal to 1, 2, or 3. So this is the if else if statement. Now what is actually happening? The value of my variable a is 5. So the first condition will be false and this statement will not execute. And the second condition will also be false and this statement will not execute. And the third condition will also be false and this statement will not execute. And since all three conditions are false, that means the final statement a is not equal to 1, 2, 3 will execute, which is inside the body of the else statement. So when I run the program, I'm going to get a is not equal to 1, 2, 3 in my output screen. But if, for example, I've initialized the value of the variable a to 2. So when it reaches this condition will be true. That means a is equal to 2 will be printed in the output screen and the remaining conditions will be ignored by the compiler. So when I run the program, I'm only going to get a is equal to 2 printed in my output screen. So this is the if else if statement. And now the final statement is the nested if statement. And the nested if statement simply means you're including an if statement inside the body of another if statement. So let me just change this to 5 again. And first I'm going to write if a is greater than 2. This is my first condition, which is true. And inside the body of my first if statement, I will write another if statement. If a is greater than 4. And inside the body of my inner if statement, I'm simply going to write printf a is greater than 4. That's it. So the nested if statement is basically used to test some condition in more detail. So for example, if the first condition is satisfied, a is greater than 2, then the second condition will be tested. And if the second more detailed condition is satisfied, only then will the printf statement execute. So since 5 is greater than 2 and 5 is greater than 4, then I will get a is greater than 4 in my output screen. But if I wrote, for example, if I wrote 3 right here, so the first condition is satisfied, a is greater than 2 because 3 is greater than 2, but the second condition is not satisfied. This means that this if statement will not execute and I will get nothing in my output screen. So when I run the program, I'm going to get nothing in my output screen. So this is all it about the if statement and its types. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comment section, and thanks for watching this video.